That's the microphone, and it's not going to get any better than this.
Fantastic, awesome, great to see you, man. Thank you very much.
Look at that.
Good man. I wish I could join you. It's 9 o'clock in the morning here, so I've got a day of work ahead of me. I best not have a beer yet. But if you want to crack your beer open, please feel free.
Oh, I will.
Folks, just before we get going here, this is Thor Pedersen. He's got it goes under the social media tag name of Once Upon a Saga, and he has an incredible ongoing journey to tell us all about this morning. But first off, you're in Vanuatu, is that correct? In the South Pacific Islands?
We say Vanuatu.
That one. He's there, country 200. It's 7 o'clock at night for him. It's 9 o'clock in the morning for me. So, Slange, here's to your health.
Cheers, Slange.
Right. Okay. Thor.
This is a local brew. I don't know if you can see that. Tusker.
Is it?
Vanuatu,
Tusker.
right there.
I like how you just arrived in this country. Like literally, was it this morning or yesterday?
Yeah. I disembarked the ship. 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock this morning. Yeah.
And this is a seasoned traveller. He's already scoped out the local beer, got himself stocked up. Like it. You can take the man out of Denmark, eh?
Yeah, exactly. Good to be talking to you. I'm excited about this.
Me too. I cannot believe, I'll be honest with you, I hadn't heard about your amazing trip until a couple of months ago. Someone that, a friend of mine, he said, "Oh, have you seen this guy? You've got to get him on the podcast." So I was like, "No, I've not heard about this." I had a look and I was like, "Oh my God, this is insanity. It's crazy." Can I pass it over to you just to introduce the people, tell them what it is that you're doing, who you are, where you are now, all that sort of stuff?
Yeah, sure thing. So my name is Torbjørn C. Pedersen, which is a very Danish name, a very Nordic name. And the first part is Thor, and the second part is Bjørn, Torbjørn, which is Thor and bear. So as I travel, I introduce myself as Thor. I think that's fair. In 2013, got the idea to reach every country in the world completely without flying. Set down 3 ground rules to make sure that I would be the first in history to complete such a journey. So absolutely no flying. It has to be more than 24 hours in each country, and I cannot return home until I reach the final country or quit it all. And I had no idea how tough all of that was going to be. Thought it would take less than 4 years, and we just passed 9 years here on the 10th of October. But also now 200 countries on the list of 203. I aim to look for the positive and promote the kindness and generosity of people that I meet around the world, and the beauty, the culture, food, anything good I can look for. But I try to keep it realistic. I find that generally media has a very negative-driven angle, and a lot of what the cameras are usually pointing at doesn't really represent the world that we live in. So I'm trying to show a bit of what's behind the cameras, so to speak. I'm also Goodwill Ambassador of the Danish Red Cross, and I've tagged up with the Red Cross in 195 countries, I think. Wow. It's the world's largest humanitarian organization. It's pretty much in every country in the world, and I try to raise awareness and funds and ask people to volunteer and donate blood and all of that, just get some interest in humanitarian work. And then it's a stamina kind of project. It's about grit and pulling through and reaching a goal that you set in front of yourself, and that can transfer into almost anything. So I know a lot of people out there are fighting for something, and I'm trying to shine a beacon in regards to what I'm fighting for.
Man, that's incredible. 9 years you've been on the road, and you've not been home in that entire time.
9 years.
Well, that deserves a drink. She was. Congratulations.
Yeah, thank you.
So
it wasn't meant to take 9 years, but how do you get this far in?
You can't. I mean, you can't. I mean, it must just literally be on heaven on earth. I am going to tick these 203. What are you going to do if they create another one? You're going to have to. you get to 203, and all of a sudden another country appears. It's like sometimes they have breakaways and stuff.
It could happen. The last time it happened was in 2011. So it's been a while since the world got a new country. if you look apart from the ones that Putin just created inside Ukraine, but those are hardly recognized. So if a new country popped up before I reached number 203, I would increase the list to 204 and chase that before going home. If it came to the world after I reached 203 and I'm back home, then I think it's fair just to fly out to it and then come back home and say, okay, I've been there. I've still been to every country in the world.
Absolutely. I think people would give you that leeway. Yeah. I mean, I've been doing my best to sort of do some research on you and your trip and stuff before this. There's lots of little you have lots of little idiosyncrasies that you have connected with your trip. One being your beard. You don't shave your beard because you got married, didn't you, during this 9 years on the road?
I did, yeah, online.
Is that right? You were with your girlfriend, fiance, when you left, and then obviously you stayed together the entire time, and then you got married. Was it during the lockdown? Is that right?
It was, yeah. So it was, with a project like this, you have to be able to think out of the box, be quite creative with your solutions. Some things are straightforward. Sometimes you can just buy a ticket and cross the border, but sometimes it gets really darn hardcore and you're in front of a wall and you need to find a way through it or around. And so we were together as a couple and stuck together. And decided we were going to do long distance and see how it was going to go. And she came out to visit me several times, and we had our ups and downs. And she came out to visit me for the 10th time in Kenya. And I had bought a ring, and I lured her out on a hike up on top of Mount Kenya, which is the second highest mountain in Africa. And
oh, you froze. Oh no!
See,
you're back.
And you're back. It was a snowstorm, and it was a complete whiteout. It was cold. It was horrible. It was miserable up there. But she did say yes, so that was
fantastic.
Good. And so we were engaged beyond that, and then I got stuck in Hong Kong for the pandemic. I originally came to Hong Kong for 4 days as transit between two ships, and ended up being 2 years in Hong Kong. So this beard was growing and growing and growing. I only shave the beard when I see my wife. Yeah. And we hadn't seen each other for 1.5 years. So it's a fair bit longer than what you have right now.
Yeah, I bet.
And we found out that you can get married online. First of all, we found out that if I was a resident in Hong Kong and if we were married, then I could apply for a visa for her, a dependency visa or something like that. And then she could come into Hong Kong during the lockdown. And I managed to get a job, become a temporary resident. And we got married online through an agency in Utah. So it was sort of a call like this. And because of the time difference, she got married on December 19th, and I got married the next day on December 20th.
Wow, that's incredible. That is how. Well, I mean, this is an incredibly personal question. The reason I'm asking is I set off and did a trip. I was away for 1.5 years, and I was with my girlfriend before I left. And then we stayed together and we got engaged when I was away as well. But that was 1.5 years. How have you, 9 years. I suppose if you get through 9 years and you're still together, then you're solid as a rock.
It's a really good question. I'm 43 years old. I was 43. And I was 34. I'm 43 now. I was 34 when I left Denmark. So at 34, I already had a career. I worked 12 years within shipping and logistics, and before that, I was in the military.
Right.
And so on.
Okay.
And during my career within shipping and logistics, I worked abroad a lot. I had a lot of projects. I worked 2 years in Libya, 1 year in Bangladesh. I worked in the Arctic Circle. I worked in Greenland. I worked in Florida, many places around the world. And the tendency was that I would have a woman in my life when I went out on one of these projects, and there would be no one waiting for me when I came back home. Mm-hmm. So I didn't really have good experience with long distance relationship I was worried about it, and I talked to her and I told her it's not going to be a picnic. It's work, and we need to pay a lot of attention to each other, and we'll see how we make it function. And she was game, and it hasn't always been easy. But I think a big part of it is being honest and communicating. And sometimes she's super busy, sometimes I'm really busy, and it's hard to communicate. And then we sense that things are not going the right way, and then we try to get back in and make it work. But it's wow. I don't know how. I guess she's just the right one for me, and I'm the right one for her.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's that realization, isn't it? I think is when you have that connection, then it's there. No matter the distance, no matter the time, you've got a connection, don't you? And that's that. So if we rewind post 9 years ago, before you left, when did you come up with this idea, and like what inspired you to do this?
Right. I came back from a project in January 2013, and I was looking for a new logistics project that I could go out and do. And the phone wasn't ringing, and I wasn't really getting any emails and any offers. And that's okay. I can be idle for a bit between projects, but I'm not used to it. And my father sent me an email in between, and he sent me a link about travelers, people who'd gone to every country in the world. And through that article, I realized that it was possible to go to every country. I had no idea. I had been to 50 countries through school trips and family vacations and work and stuff like that, 50 countries. And I was 34. And so I was thinking, how many countries are there? I didn't really know. But turns out there are about 200 countries in the world. So how would you get to all of them? Like, how would you even afford it? You'd have to be a millionaire. And I was reading this article, and
he froze again.
Stunned.
You're back. You're back now. You're back.
Okay. Yeah, I'm sorry. I'm literally inside the bathroom. My shower is right here, and the toilet is right here. And that's because this is the only place where there's enough light. And the connection. The connection is through my phone, which is on the bed there behind us, sending a signal to my laptop. Wow. So here we go.
We'll cope. We'll cope.
Okay. So sorry if it cuts in and out. So
no problem.
So I realized that you could do it, and some people had traveled on small budgets, or some people had traveled on budget as small as $10 per day. I mean, with mostly with bicycles and a few flights here and there, and a tent and eating street food and whatnot. And it's just astonishing to see how people had done it. And I found that it was a really small group of people who had managed every country in the world. So I think the first guy to go to every country in the world was in the late 80s that he completed his journey, and a guy from Finland. And around the turn of the millennia, it was about 20 people who had been to every country in the world. And when I read that article, it was about 200 people, and we might be getting closer to 300, but certainly between 200 and 300 people have been to every country in the world, which is a tiny, tiny club. And nobody had done it without flying. So that stuck with me. But it wasn't like, I'm going to go out and do it. It was more like, that's interesting, but I'm too old. It's too late. If I was 24, if I didn't have a career, if I didn't have someone in my life, but it just stuck with me. And then as I was lying idle between projects, I played with the idea, toyed with it. And I was like, okay, so if I was going to do it, which I'm absolutely not, then what would my budget be? How would I do it logistically? What would I pack? What kind of values would I bring with me? What would I wear? And how time management would in it? How much time would I on average spend per country? And where would the bottlenecks be? Where would the complications arise? And you just played with it, and then eventually I was so invested that it became a thing.
You had to do it.
Yeah. And now I have to finish it. I mean, it has to be something really terrible has to happen, and knock on wood that it doesn't. But yeah, I mean, 3 countries. I think I can do it within maybe another 7 months to do the last 3.
Have you? Is this the first time in this 9 years that you've been focusing on the end, or are you even focusing on the end yet? Do you still literally just take it as it comes?
I mean, Yeah. The end of this is definitely a part of the motivation.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
I do want that title. I do want to be that person who didn't give up. I would much rather be that person who didn't give up than the guy who gave up.
Yeah.
And I dream about coming home. But at the same time, I have to say, when I left home, I thought I would walk out the door and the streets would be lined with supporters, and Nike and all the big companies would come after me with sponsorships, and people would throw money at me, and I would be the biggest name in the world in no time. I really had some kind of vision that this is so amazing. I mean, this is something historical. It has never been done before. I'm going out there to do it. I'll have all the support in the world. And reality was completely different. It was more like, it's an interesting story, but I'm busy with something else, so can you please go away?
Life goes on, doesn't it? Yeah.
Life goes on. And I live in a bubble, as many of us do. So I have a decent amount of social media followers, and they're super supportive, and they say really nice things, and they do throw flowers in my direction. And you can, sometimes you get all of that, and you think, yeah, it's great. But then you're in a bus, and nobody in the bus knows who you are, and nobody on the street knows who you are, and so on and so forth. So there's been this dream about coming home and how great it's going to be. But I think in reality, the greatness in coming home is coming home victorious and accomplished, and hopefully in a state where I'll be able to continue to inspire and motivate those people who feel that I do so, and share good stories about the world. Maybe write a book. I do enjoy doing motivational speaking, and I've done that quite a lot around the world. So I hope I'll be able to continue to do that. And if it's not too late, start a family with my wife. That would be wonderful.
Awesome. Yeah, I found, I mean, mine pales into insignificance to yours. A year and a half I was away for, and I really sort of suffered. I suffered for a good 9 months when I got back with the post-trip blues. You know, I got really down, and it's just a lot of. I can sympathize a lot with what you just said there, in that, you know, I was used to my life on the road, and then I came home feeling like I had totally changed, and, you know, my whole perception about people, the world, everything had changed. I was a police officer. I used to be a police officer in London. So when I left, I was very guarded. I wasn't open to people I'd never met before, because I had to be like that in my job. You know, like everyone lied to me. You know, like when I met somebody new in my job, they're lying to me. They're hiding something all the time. You know, it's just, they always were. And you're always on the defensive, guarding yourself. And all of a sudden you put yourself out there in the world, and you're meeting new people in new countries and new cultures. And exactly what you just said, you realize everyone's the same. Almost everybody out there is the same. Everyone just wants to look after their family. They want to, you know, feed their family. They want a nice, comfortable life as best they possibly can, and they will help. They will help you if you need help, don't they? If they can help, they'll help. Yeah. They will help,
and especially if it's free. Especially if it's free. So
absolutely.
If it's some knowledge that they already have, they will pass it on to you. They'll point you in the right direction. They'll translate. You can actually measure how friendly people are in how much it's costing them. And in some countries, the friendliness is extraordinary. It's costing them so much, and they just keep giving. And you go to a country like mine, as long as it's free, we'll help you.
Yeah, true.
But, you know, I'm not going to start my car and drive you 50K in some direction. That's not going to happen in Denmark. But that does happen in Venezuela. That does happen in Sudan. That does happen in Pakistan. That happens in some wonderful countries around the world. But yeah, spot on what you said. I mean, I preach that all the time. People are just people. And sure, you know, you might be praying to one God or several gods or no gods, and you might have you want the state to be more powerful or less powerful, and you might have your political ideologies and whatnot. But you know, that's out there. You start coming closer to who people are, It's about food and music and sports and family, and people fall in love and get married, and they get stuck in traffic, and they complain about rain, and people are people everywhere. And you do not walk into a country and everyone has 6 arms and 14 eyes. It doesn't happen. It's people, and they need to eat and sleep and all this stuff. I've never jumped into a bus and everyone was a terrorist, and my head is still attached. No one cut it off. I haven't been shot. I haven't been stabbed. It's a pretty normal world full of normal people going about with normal stuff. It's a lot of photos and selfies and social media. And back when it was Game of Thrones, everybody was doing that. And then when it was something else, they were doing that. And that's the world we live in. It's interesting. So something else that you said, that you were a policeman, and that shaped your worldview and your persona, because that's also something that I've been thinking a great deal about. That who we are so shaped by what we do. And I was in the army for 3 years at a young age, so that did shape me in a certain way. And then I got into logistics, and logistics also has a lot of structure, but it also has a lot of juggling, a lot of balls, and having a lot of information and releasing the right information in the right time, and so on. So it fits well for a project like this. And I have time and time again said that policemen, they get into a world where it helps policemen being suspicious, and that's a good trait to have. But then you bring it home, and you bring it on holiday, and you bring it wherever you go. Yeah, that's what I used to find with that. I remember before, one thing really sticks out in my mind. Before I met my wife, back in my, in your dating days, I remember, going on a date and meeting up with a lady for the first time, and we were in Leicester Square in London. And I remember sitting there, like having a drink with her. And the whole time I'm looking at everybody else, and I'm like, he's a pickpocket, they're dealing. You know what I mean? You're like, you're not in the moment where you should be. I'm looking everywhere else, and I'm people watching, but I'm people watching in a job role. And it's like, I remember her saying to me, she was like, "You're still working, aren't you?" And I was just like, oh God, yeah, it's a good point. And it did totally envelop. It does envelop you as a person. I think you get too invested in certain roles that you take. So yeah, I left about 2 years ago, just before lockdown, actually, just before COVID hit. I resigned. I'd been in like 18 years, 19 years, and I've had enough. I've had enough now. So, I'm out of that world now, and it's weird. I do feel different. I do feel different as a person for sure. But I think travel had a massive part to do with that. It did change me. Sure it did.
And I never really fitted back in, once I came back. Be interesting to see how the whole point that got me onto that line of thought was just, I was thinking, wow, how will it be for you to adjust back to like normality when you get back to, I take it you're returning to Denmark at the end of it? Are you going back to Denmark? Yeah,
Denmark's home.
It'd be interesting, but I mean, I think you sound like you have a very pragmatic approach to things. You're obviously used to being away with work prior to this, obviously not for 9 years in one hit. No. But as you said, you have your talks and writing the book and stuff. I definitely found after about 8-9 months, I started focusing on other things. I wrote a book, I had a DVD to do, lots of stuff. I all of a sudden realized I had to, I was getting married. So you've got other things to focus on in your future lives together. So that started to help. It was almost like it's a new project. Let's focus on the next project and the next and the next and the next. Yeah. Be interesting to see.
I can follow that train of thought. Always looking for a new project. Like I'm thinking, I want to do I've done some marathons in the past. I'd like to get marathon fit again and do that in the future. Maybe I would like to do some adventurous ones around the world. Maybe I would like to do this. Maybe I'd like to do that. Maybe I'd say so and so and so and so and so. It never ends.
Your wife is like, no, you're staying home for a while, please. Stay here. Give her about a month and she'll be like, right, go on, bugger off, go somewhere else.
Quite possible. She'll put me in chains.
Thor, the way things work on this podcast is I put out on my socials to say who the next guest is, and then people have the opportunity to pose some questions for us to chat through. And sometimes they're related to what it is that you're doing. Other times they're totally random. They're quite obscure. They just get us thinking and talking. Are you okay for us just to start going through them? Right. Awesome.
Absolutely. Sure.
Okay, so first off, we'll head across to the clan over on Patreon, patreon.com/TeapotOne. First one, Ross Deasley. Hi, Thor. I've been following your journey for some time now. A massive well done to you. My question is, what was the best situation where you thought, no one is going to believe this? And also, what and where was the best meal that you've had? All right, so most unbelievable moment that you've experienced so far.
That's such a good question. I've been in a lot of different situations, and that kind of stories I tend to try to share them because that's what's unique, that's what's special, that's what generates interest. And I haven't come across anyone that said, I don't believe that. That's untrue. I mean, people tend to believe them. I think people, they dream about that there is exotic stuff out there, and there's these unnormal elements to life. It's not just the everyday treadmill of things.
Yeah.
I mean, I was recently supported. So keep in mind, I'm from Denmark, which is in the northern part of Europe, and I'm in the South Pacific now. And I was recently in Samoa, which is a Pacific island nation. Mm-hmm. And the government of Samoa reached out to the government of the Kingdom of Tonga to ask if I could travel between the two countries. So one government reached out on government level to give me access to go to the next country.
Yeah.
And for me, I sat in a sandbox many years ago. I was a kid, and I was when I left home 9 years ago, my followers on Facebook were my friends and my family and whatnot. Yeah. There were not a single article had been written about me.
Oh, you froze.
Foreign government reaching out to another foreign government to give me access during COVID-19, which is still a thing out here. It's mind-boggling to me that it's reached that kind of level. But I think people believe me when I tell these stories. And then in terms of food, the world is full of good food. I think that I haven't been to a single country where people worship bad food. Everyone wants to make food as good as it can possibly be. And they have generations and generations of finding spices and finding out how long they have to boil it and so on. So I've had good food in every country in the world. But some of the food that I dream about, which I haven't had for a very long time, is in Central Africa. If you think of Africa with the bend, so in there in the bend along the coast, the fish, and then on the streets, you'll find these mamas that are grilling the fish, and the air is full of smoke, and in the evening it looks brilliant, and they serve it with manioc, which they cut into small pieces, and then there's some secret sauce, and there's some chili and some garlic, and you eat it with your fingers and just peel the meat off the fish. It's so good. And then I haven't really come across it. I mean, you can get fish anywhere, but not in that way and not that quality as in Central Africa.
Where's that? Is that like is it Gabon, Nigeria, that sort of area, right in the corner bit on the west? Is that the bit you're talking about in there? So
you have to go a bit east of Nigeria. You'd probably also get it in Nigeria though, but definitely in Cameroon.
Cameroon,
Gabon, you're right about that, Gabon. Yeah. And in between Equatorial Guinea as well.
Gotcha. Yeah, Africa's somewhere on my trip. My original plan was I did it on a motorbike. My original plan was to ride down the west, basically try and circumnavigate all of Africa. But I got as far as it didn't quite go to plan. I got as far as Mauritania and then just got caught up in a whole load of issues that were going on at the time. And I got to Dakar in Senegal and then had to come back to London for a bit and then go. So I've missed that. I basically missed out a huge chunk of Africa, and I want to go back and finish it one day. It's sort of eating away at me. It's like, I've got to get back there and do it. So yeah, I'd definitely love to go back and do Africa. I hear nothing but great stories about it. So yeah, I've got to get back.
Yeah, you'll have every type of story to tell after a journey like that. I came across a couple of Austrians in four-wheel drive who had a project which in German, but in translated would be down and up. And they were doing exactly that in a four-wheel drive. And then they pretty much made it, but then they got into an accident when they were coming up somewhere, maybe Sudan. I think maybe Sudan, maybe it was before Sudan, maybe Ethiopia. But they got into an accident where they totaled, like they were lucky to get away alive. And they just called it quits. But yeah, they did quite well. And I know people who've done it on bicycles, push bikes. So
all sorts.
They make it through. But if you want to make it easy on yourself, you do the East Coast down, and then you feel confident because you actually got like from the north to the south. I mean, if you want to do the West Coast, there are a few countries you have to go through and you might not get the visas.
Yes, yeah. I remember planning it before I went, and I had all my African visas ready to go. You know, you had to have a few passports, and it was all sorted. I was using a company in London, and it was all lined up. It was like the stars aligned, and I was like, yes, let's go for this. And then I got caught up in a big issue that was happening in Mauritania at the time. So, well, whole of sort of West Africa at the time. But anyway, never mind.
Which year was that?
Africa was end of 2012. So it's when, you know, the Boko Haram, the Islamic fundamentalists, they kidnapped all the Nigerian schoolgirls. Well, they were basically just exploding all over Africa at that point. So they'd taken Mali and they'd moved into Mauritania. So I basically ended up getting robbed by the police all the time because there were so many police everywhere, and I just kept getting done by the police, and then I got taken at Rosso, the border, and it wasn't good. But you're talking about food. How did you find food in Russia? You had the borscht. Did you have the borscht in Russia?
I had the borscht.
Yeah. What did you think of that? Oh, you're frozen. Oh, you're there. Sorry, go on.
Okay. Yeah, so did you get everything, or should I start over?
Yeah, if you could start again. Yeah, the borscht.
Yeah, sure. So I went straight for the borscht. That's the only thing I knew out of Russia, probably. Yeah. So I went and got that. But yeah, so there's a lot of food I don't remember in Russia because I got too drunk.
I was going to say, there's often vodka with it, isn't there?
And there's a lot of vodka with a lot of the meals. Russian food? No, I don't really remember. I remember some of those satellite countries, the former Soviet Union, a lot of the Stan countries. There was a lot of good food in those. Russia, I don't really remember it for food. I remember it for its grandeur. And it's such a massive country. And you go to Moscow, and Moscow has these incredibly wide streets and tall buildings. And it's a super cool country, and I'm so saddened by the conflict and the war between Russia and Ukraine. But that aside, I had great experiences in Russia, and I met a lot of lovely Russians, and I saw some amazing places. And the same in Ukraine, definitely. I had some wonderful experiences and met some wonderful people.
Yeah. It's such a shame, isn't it? Because, you know,
it is,
when you've been there and you've met the real people in any country, and then you see how the country's represented via their government, via the media, as you said, the media are just, they can be vermin at times and so sensationalist on everything. And you know, like at the moment, I've met Ukrainians, I've met Russians, and you know, none of them, they're the same. None of them are what is depicted in the media. You know, they're not these evil, conspiring people. They're normal people. You know, and it's horrible to see how everything's being portrayed at the moment. But anyway, c'est la vie, it's life. We're not going to fix it here, are we? People need to get out and see it for themselves.
We're not going to fix it here. But if people knew what well-traveled people know about the world and how people are, it might end, it might stop. I think people don't know that, and then they paint these pictures of enemies across borders and on the other side of the mountain and far away, and it's really not the case for most people, at least.
It's what
there are those fire starters out there.
Totally. Oh yeah. You're always going to get a minority of people who, unfortunately, they're the ones that get the attention, aren't they? You know, it's like these sort of almost unique type of events, these sensationalist events, and people they get the headlines because they're not normal. That's the reason that it's promoted in the media. It's because that's not, you know, it's tabloid headlines a lot of the time, isn't it? It's just sensationalist stuff. But I always say to people, just if you get the option, travel and travel where you meet the local people, not like fly in, jump on a bus, go straight to your hotel, do the tourist thing and get out there and meet the people, you know, and it's, I just think it's so good for the soul to meet normal people and realize exactly what you've just said. We're all the same. We're all the same out there.
People.
Absolutely.
When I was working in Bangladesh back in 2011, which feels like a lifetime ago, my father flew in to visit. He's old school. My father is 74 years old now. He's a bright fellow and he follows the news, but he's old school. And I think he did have some sort of opinion about people from such countries and that kind of stuff. And he showed up and was walking in the street, and you know, like, he's from Denmark and they're from Bangladesh, and so there's a cultural gap for sure. And after a day or two, he came back and was just so excited. And he said he was walking down the street on his own. I was working, so he was walking down the street, and this guy comes out and says, "You, what's your religion?" My father goes, "I'm Christian." He said, "I am Muslim." Oh, okay. Well, what's your country? And so he's from Denmark, and he's from Bangladesh. What's your blood type? It's A+. Mine too. We have the same blood. And then after this, and then every time my father, he would walk the same way every day until he got on the plane and flew home. He would shout at that person, A+, A+.
That's fantastic, isn't it? Brilliant. Oh, you've frozen again.
Yeah, you too.
There you are. Okay. Yeah, that's awesome. That is great. My son's 25 at the moment, and he really wants to travel, but it's just a few things holding him back at the moment. He's not quite ready to go, but I think he will go, and I'm really excited for him. Just to wherever it is he goes, however long he goes for, I'm really excited that he'll do it, and he'll see for himself. I'm sure he will one day. But anyway, just so that
get him out there.
Absolutely. Yeah, for sure. He's in New York at the moment, actually. It's not quite I know. Well, it still is an adventure, isn't it? But you know, he's over there at the moment, just sort of seeing life for himself. We'll see what happens.
You walk down the wrong street in New York, you could be on more of an adventure than you.
Do you know that used to make me laugh, that people would say to me, "Oh, you're not scared about going to this country and that country?" And I was like, well, gee whiz, you know, at that point in my life, I'd had numerous guns pulled on me in my job in the old Bill. I'd had people trying to stab me in the old Bill. It's like, you know, anything can happen to you right here, right here in London. So over there, it's not really going to be that much different. Anyway, Ross has a third question. He says, how much harder do you think your adventure would have been had you not had your experience in the shipping industry? So you alluded to that. That is your work background. You worked in logistics.
Yeah, it's another good question. It's hard to see because I am who I am.
Yes. Yeah.
And if I was a doctor, who knows? Maybe that would have opened some borders because I was a doctor and medical aid and this kind of stuff. Maybe if I was a policeman, I don't know. I tend to think, because this is the trade I chose, shipping and logistics, and this is where I put 12 years of my life, plus the last 9 years of my life has been logistics and bureaucracy. I think that's the grandest thing you can do. This is the best profession. It ties everything together. Everything is logistics. You meet people, it's logistics. You run your household, it's logistics. Everything is logistics. So I have this this inflated belief about my own profession, which makes me think that it's perfect for what I'm doing. But I mean, it could have been anything. I mean, it's any trade. There's certainly some trades out there where you're probably a lot better at communicating with people, and that would help you along. A lot of what I do, it's not me going to now 200 countries without flying. It's my body, and yes, I am a part of it for sure. But I'm being carried and pushed through and helped and assisted by thousands and thousands and thousands of people who can assist and help and want to be a part of the story in so many different ways. So it's really, if I get to the final country and I go, I did it. I hope someone is there with a shovel ready to.
Yeah. It's not just you. Yeah.
We did it. We did it.
That's an important point. Yeah, that is an important point for sure. It's never a solo effort, is it? Like my trip, I rode solo, but again, there were so many people reached out to me on social media and offered places to stay, offered, like a tank of fuel, a coffee, something, some food. It is a total team effort, isn't it? So did you have?
I mean, that's a lot of stuff I have to turn down, or I can't even reply to because it's too overwhelming sometimes.
Absolutely, yeah. So did you in the planning of your trip, did you have like all the various different points? I suppose you couldn't even have a route in mind, could you? Because it would depend on when and where you got permissions to get into various countries. So I take it it's just a very fluid plan. It's always been a fluid plan, has it? From which country you go, next and next and next, or did you have a set route?
Yeah, you have to remember I'm not flying, so I don't have the option to say, I can't get the visa here, then I'll get another one and fly over there. I can't do that. I have to deal with it. And that's just been a part of the game from the get-go. So I sat down in 2013. I left home on the 10th of October, 2013, and I sort of got the idea in like January, February. So in between, I was like playing a bit with the idea.
Oh, you froze.
Obviously,
it's back.
Okay. A part of it was obviously the logistics of it all. So I had a world map and a red pen and a blue pen, and I did two different routes. How I envisioned, but it has to connect because I'm not flying. So, and you don't want to go through the same country too many times. So you want to sort of work it out in a clever way. And I did that, and I think I probably stuck to it about 90%. So there have been some changes. Especially within the Pacific, there have been some changes because my thinking in 2013 was that this island is closer to this island and then closer to this island and then this one. So I'll go like this. But you have to think about who has trade and where is the mine and where is the stuff going and how do the ships connect and this kind of stuff. And the distance within the Pacific is so great that hoping to accomplish with a sailboat, I mean, unless you have your own, I don't know how to do that. It has to be container ships. It has to be these working ships. And they just draw the routes. And sometimes it's up here to get down here. And so when I got to Singapore, I met with some shipping experts and they looked at my plan and they went like, yeah, good plan, let's redo it. And then the pandemic hit. And then with the pandemic, I mean, on the other side, we're sort of at the, I don't know, they still say there's a pandemic, but it feels like we're getting out of it slowly.
Yeah.
But I mean, if I went to Tuvalu right now, I would still need to do at least 2 weeks hotel quarantine. So we're not out of it yet. And I'm still PCR testing every time I'm going on a ship. I can't get on the ship if it's just positive. But yeah, so when the world started to open up and the Pacific, which is the last part of the world to open up, slowly open up, it was all about which country has opened. Can I get to Australia now? Okay, let's go to Australia. So
wow, that's interesting to hear. It's still such a focus over there because so here in the UK and pretty much I've been all over Europe this year, and it's just not even a consideration anymore. You know, COVID's just doesn't even come into anyone's heads anymore. You don't need to do any tests for the UK or anything now. But wow, it's interesting to hear that it's still.
Here's what you need to be aware of. Almost all containerized goods come out of China. You know, everything's made in China.
Yeah.
And that means that a lot of the ships, they need to call Chinese ports. Mm-hmm. So when they come up with empty containers to China and they get full containers and they transport them somewhere else. And China is still trying to defeat COVID-19 and doing zero COVID policy, which I'm not here to say what's the right or the wrong policy, but that is what they're doing, mm-hmm. right? And if a ship rocks up to China, and I think procedures are that the captain needs to send a report saying that they've tested temperatures, everyone has done a self-test, and all of the tests were negative. Then the ship can come alongside in China. So if there's COVID on board and there's one positive test, then the ship is possibly quarantined for, say, 3 weeks, maybe. And 3 weeks for a ship to lie there and wait is somewhere between half and $1 million. So apart from time, it's money. And that's the risk that these ships are taking when they're taking me on board, because they need to do crew change. Mm-hmm. There are laws and regulations how long the crew can be on board. And it's pretty shitty for the seafarers up till this day, because they can't get shore leave. So they come on board the ship, and they're just on board the ship until they finish their time, and then they transition back home. And just to get off the ship for a few hours in a port somewhere, that is such a mental break for them. So it's still rough for the seafarers out there. But the shipping companies, they have to take these people on and off. That's a part of how it works. They don't need to take a passenger. So that's an extra risk for them. And I'm going between countries that don't care about COVID.
Oh, it froze again.
They don't care about COVID. It's back to normal times in there. And now I'm in Vanuatu, and I don't even think you need to be vaccinated to come to Vanuatu. And they haven't had a case in 6 months. They're just open. So I'm in 2 countries where people don't care, and the virus could be spreading freely. Nobody knows. And I'm trying to stay COVID negative to get on board the ship.
To get on board the ship. Yeah. Where are you going after this then? After Vanuatu, what's the last 3 that you have to do?
Yeah, I'm left with Tuvalu, which is here in the South Pacific, and that's the last one in the Pacific, and I'm done with the Pacific. And then I'm on my way to the Indian Ocean, where I have Sri Lanka and Maldives. And the route is to go here from Vanuatu back to Fiji for the 3rd time. Fiji is sort of in the center of a lot of it.
Yep.
And then connect from Fiji up to Tuvalu, then return back to Fiji for the 4th and last time, and then hopefully get on a ship, which probably goes down to New Zealand, Australia, PNG, and Indonesia before it gets to Singapore, and then connect with another ship in Singapore to get to Sri Lanka. And then from Sri Lanka, go to Maldives. And then if I want to go home without flying, then I would have to return to Sri Lanka again and connect with a ship probably up through the Suez Canal. And then any port I hit in Europe, I can be home within a couple of days.
Excuse me for interrupting, folks, but it is sponsor shout-out time. And this month, we have a new sponsor. Welcome to Travel Escapes. Now, I've got some blurb to read out. Travel and Escape is an independent travel agent. They are ABTA and ATOL protected for your peace of mind. For hassle-free, tailor-made holidays from staycations, day experiences, cruises, luxury holidays, and so much more. You can find them all on the socials or book directly online using the link link. Now, folks, I'll leave all their socials and a website link down below. Make sure you check that out. If you're watching a video, have a look at the description. If you're listening to the podcast, check out the show notes. There will be hyperlinks there. Make sure you give them a click, a follow, a like. And if you're looking for a little break for you and the loved one, you and the family, you and whoever, maybe just you yourself, make sure you check out Travel and Escape. We are also sponsored by Innov. Now, Innov have been a long-term sponsor for the main channel over on TeapotOne, but they're also helping out and sponsoring the podcast. So a massive thanks to them. Innov specialise in motorcycle dash cam systems. They do the front and rear dual camera K series. That's the K3 and the flagship K5. K3 is 1080 front and rear. K5 is 4K at the front, 1080 at the rear. The K5 also has much faster Wi-Fi. So both the K3 and K5 utilize a mobile app where you can view your footage, you can change settings, you can share on socials, you can have a look at your GPS overlay, all this sort of stuff. Both do the job if you just simply want a dash cam. If you ever get involved in an accident, the first thing your insurance is going to ask is there any CCTV? And obviously, if you have one of these systems fitted, then you can turn around and go, yes, I do. And if you head to innov.co.uk and use the code TEAPOT, you'll get 5% off of all Innov and Technologic cameras. So a massive thanks to Innov. And lastly for this one, we're also sponsored by Ultimate Add-ons. Now, Ultimate Add-ons, they make dustproof and shockproof mobile phone cases and action camera mounts. They will fit just about every single bike out there. Me personally, I always use the Helix strap mount because it means I can easily attach that to just about any bike that I'm riding at that time. I can jump on and off bikes and just easily unscrew the strap, whack it on the next bike, tighten it all up, and off I go. It's very versatile. I've had no vibration issues affecting my camera using the Helix strap. That's the one that I will stand by and swear by. Been using it about 5 years now. So again, if you head to Ultimate Add-ons, that's Ultimate with ADDONS, ultimateaddons.com. If you use the code TEAPOT110, so TEAPOTONE with the number 10, you'll get 10% off all Ultimate Add-ons. Okay, that'll do us for now. Let's get back to the podcast. So do you think, is that your plan then? Are you going to, is the plan to return home having visited every single country without flying? Or is it, I'll get to the final country, Maldives, and then fly home? Surely you've got to do the no flying one.
Well, I don't know. It depends. I'm afraid I like this kind of stuff. I like doing a podcast interview with you, and I smile and I'm engaged and so on. And I'm engaged when I meet people on the street and I smile. And but in between, I can get pretty moody. And it's 9 years is such a long time, and it's a long time of waking up to something that has to be accomplished before you can go home, or you quit all of it. And that's such a mental thing. So if I do nothing, then I'm in Vanuatu for the rest of my life, or until they deport me on an airplane, right? Mm-hmm. I have to do something to move on to the next. And I've been waking up to having to do something for an eternity. So I'm so over it. I'm so over it that I'm pretty happy because now I'm in Vanuatu and it's country number 200. And there's light at the end of the tunnel and there are 3 countries left, but I'm so over it. I'm so worn out. And if I get to the Maldives and I still feel like this, that was every country and I didn't fly. Yeah. Okay. Airport.
I'm home.
Go home.
Yeah. Champagne, airport. Go.
Let's see. And I would really like to stay true to the project and say, in the spirit of the project, I will return home over land and sea and close the circle. But it's not a necessity.
Yeah, I get you. I 9 years. That's incredible. I remember being about just over a year in, and I had about 4 or 5 months left, and I was coming up through South America, and I was just at a stage that I can sympathize with you with what you're saying, because I was like, I'm ready to go home now. I'm just like, I've had enough of living in a tent. I've had enough of being on the road every single day. I want to get home. I want to sit on a couch in my pants, watch some TV, that sort of stuff. And I remember I I really battered my way through South America, Central America really quickly. And I got to America, and it was like I was almost like reinvigorated, because it was some sort of normality that I could associate with. You know, America was quite similar to life in the UK, and all of a sudden I had this love for travel again, and I was like, oh, I don't want to go home now. I want to stay on the road. But it's like, I remember that bit where I was just like, get me home, get me home, get me home. Oh yeah. How long have you got, Thor? Because we've been on for an hour so far. How long do you have?
And we can keep going. Yeah.
Yeah, cool, awesome. Because we've still got quite a few questions here to get through.
Okay.
Right, next one. Cheers for that, Ross. Next one, Biker España. Great guest as usual, Bruce. Keep up the effort. My first question, having visited almost all countries, which one would you like to live in permanently?
Okay, you froze for a bit, but I think I got the question. I would like to live in permanently. I would permanently like to live in Iceland. Is a good one for me.
Okay, why is that?
It's because, so here's the idea. Let's say I cannot return home to Denmark, and I have to I'm forced to find somewhere else. Then Iceland sort of has a similar culture. It's a very modern country. I like that it's small and a small population. I'm not much of a big city guy and millions and millions of people and busy. But they still get the newest movies as they come out, and the newest iPhone and the newest this and this and that. People are really friendly. There's a lot of adventure to be had in Iceland. It's a gorgeous country. There are volcanoes and glaciers, and it's amazing. Geysers shooting up. But the main thing for me about Iceland is the mentality. So what I think that I have noticed for most countries around the world is that you're born and put on a conveyor belt of life, and you clean your room, and you help your mom, you go to school, and you do your homework, and you finish your education, and you get a job, and you meet someone, and you get married, and you get a cat and a dog and a piano, and you pay your pension, and you advance, and then eventually you die, right? And if you had a dream which was off the conveyor belt, which could be you want to be an actor, or you want to be an author, or you want to be a singer, or you want to be a sports, an athlete, or something like this, then you're told by your environment that that's too unsafe. Stay in the conveyor belt, get the job, get the education, get all of this, and then you can have that on the side. And if that develops, then sure, go for it, but go with the safe bet first. Yeah. And I think in Iceland, they're more on the unsafe bet. And that they're more like, sure, you want to be an author? No problem. I know a publisher. I can put you in touch with that person. I actually have a spare guest room. You could stay there. I will save you some cost and give you some quiet to write your book. And like there's almost like a supportive foundation in Iceland for the unnormal, the less normal stuff.
The creative.
For the creative. And I think we saw that a few times with Iceland when they were suddenly financial geniuses. So they went from being primarily fishermen back in the day, and then they were all financial geniuses, and then they were building and investing, and suddenly it all crashed, right? And then they were able to get up on their feet again really fast, and they actually sent irresponsible politicians to prison, which never happens, and financial personnel to prison and that kind of stuff. And they got back on their feet, and they continued. And a few years ago, they were in a football tour and soccer tournament, and they just kept racing forwards. And I don't think they won. It was some international. I don't know if it's a European championship or world championship. But they just kept beating teams that they were not supposed to be able to beat because they're a country with 300,000 people. But I think it was just the mentality. No, of course we can win. If that's what we want to do, we'll win. We're the best. We'll just go at it. And so I like that about Iceland. Another country would be New Zealand. New Zealand is just really delightful. Never been? No, you should go.
No, never been.
You would have a great time on a motorbike in New Zealand for sure. I've done a bit of biking myself. I did a 4-month trip that started in the south of India and did a lot of India, got into Nepal, and then had to sell the bikes, and then flew across to Iran and got new bikes and continued Iran and Turkey, and finished in Istanbul. Yeah. And then I did one trip that started in California, in San Diego, where I drove down to Panama City through all the countries in between. But I was under time pressure, so I did 10,000 in 31 days and had to sell the bike as well. Yeah. But yeah, no, New Zealand would be great on a bike. It's gorgeous, and the mountains and the shores, and people are friendly. Small population.
I have an uncle. I have an uncle who emigrated out to New Zealand about 35 years ago now, and he's English. He's from my mum's side, but he came up to see us in Scotland before he emigrated. And he's always said to me the whole time, he's been back to the UK a couple of times, and I've met up with him, and he's always said, you will love New Zealand. You have to come. He said, it reminds me so much of Scotland, but on a bigger scale. And he's just, you need to come. So I will go one day for sure. It's interesting hearing you talk about all those previous trips that you've done, because Biker España, second part of his question, once you finish the last three, what's next? Well, we kind of touched on some of that. But are you looking forward to like traveling again once you finish, but being able to fly out somewhere, do some stuff, and then fly home? Like it's not this great big long protracted voyage.
I would like to make Copenhagen. I have an apartment in Copenhagen, and my wife is also in Copenhagen. I would like to make Copenhagen my base.
Yeah,
and there's great accessibility from Copenhagen to the rest of the world. And at the very least, you can easily fly to the UK and then connect from the UK to the world. So yeah, I imagine there'll be a lot of flying in the future, and especially for the speaking engagements. I've done more than 100 speaking engagements in probably more than 60 countries around the world. I need to look at the stats. It's got to be more than 60 countries. So all my speaking my experience is abroad and in English, and it would be awkward to go and try to do speaking engagements in Denmark. Plus, it's a small audience. I mean, it's a country with less than 6 million people, and the world with 8 billion people. So I hope that a lot of my speaking engagements would be I'm flying to Tokyo this weekend, that kind of stuff. I hope I could build up something really, really good. And let's see. So that's a part of the plan. But as I mentioned, I'm coming home. I'll have to see friends and family. I'll have to find a way to keep this project alive. So it's not just 14 days of interviews and interest, and then it dies, and then it's the next thing.
Yeah.
So the book is something I really want to do, and then once the book is out there, I think that will also help with the speaking engagements. And I think I have enough connections to get those speaking engagements. We'll see how much income I can get, but I'm hoping for this. Maybe I'll get this. I have a podcast idea as well, which I might want to pursue. I think it could be interesting. See if I can start a family with my wife. We're at the end of the time spectrum, So we've spoken to professionals, and they said it's not too late. But you can't delay it at all. And she's on the other side of the planet, but she's arriving here on Friday, and this is coming off tomorrow. I just kept it for you. Is it? I just kept it for you. Otherwise, I would have trimmed it earlier today. It's coming off tomorrow. So let's see if we start a family. And I do want to get marathon fit. I would like to be one of those old geezers that show up at marathons in Berlin and London and Boston and New York. And you look at them and go like, wow, amazing, that guy's running a marathon. But where you're just constantly marathon fit. So like you can sign up for any marathon and go out and do it within a month's notice. Yeah.
Not a marathon runner.
Yeah. Yeah.
I was thinking about something when you were talking there about, life after this adventure. And I remember for me, my trip, I'm known as TeapotOne. That's what my trip was called, TeapotOne. It's my sort of brand. And in my head, TeapotOne was the round the world trip. So when I finished, that was it. It was done. And I kind of almost on purpose let go of the TeapotOne thing, and I sort of let my social media, which is really only Facebook back then, and the YouTube side of it, I sort of just let it go because I was like, well, I'm done, it's finished. But I really missed it. I really missed the interaction with people. I missed that. So it was probably, I actually left it a good year or two before I started doing it again. And I was getting so many messages from people going, what's happening? What are you doing now? And so I just started doing videos again. And then from the end of 2016, it's grown to where it is now. And yeah, I think a lot of the issues I had dealing with everything finishing was sort of self-inflicted, because I consciously ended everything, and it wasn't like I didn't go out looking for appearances anywhere. I specifically tried not to talk about the trip to people because I didn't want to bore everybody with it, and it's yeah. But
I know, I hear you. I've been out here for a long time, and some of my followers have been with me for 9 years.
Yeah,
they know the story. And so most people that I meet, they don't get it. I'm going to meet with the Red Cross here, and I know they're doing a good job. I've been in touch with them for a while, but for them, they're going to have a hard time wrapping their mind around that I've traveled 340,000 kilometers through 199 other countries plus territories to get there. I haven't been home for 9 years. I might as well just have flown in to come and have a meeting with the Red Cross.
Yeah.
So, it might dawn on them that I'm the first and only person in history to have traveled this far to come to Vanuatu, or it might not. But my followers, they do understand, and they know what I have been through. They some of them remember when I had malaria. Some of them remember the struggles I had, the difficulties, the times I wanted to give up, and found a way in spite of it. 2 years of being stuck in Hong Kong, that is mental strength right there, because Absolutely. You don't know that it's 2 years. If you arrive and they say in 2 years you can travel, you can continue to Australia. Okay, you can plan and you can deal, you can
focus
language or whatnot. Yeah. But I didn't know. I thought I'll have an out in a month.
Yeah.
Okay, maybe not a month, then 2 months. Maybe not 2 months, then 3 months. So I need to meet more people. I need to make more connections. I need to find my way out. And then suddenly it's a year. And you go like, how much do I have in myself? People think I'm nuts. There's not a single person who was trying to reach every country in the world who didn't go home when the pandemic broke out, except for me. I stuck out there because I have my free tools, and got to 2 years. I mean, the relief and the loss. I had a life. I have really good friends. I know Hong Kong far better than I know Copenhagen. Far better than I know Copenhagen.
Wow. So good point. Yeah. It's like you've left home again.
Yeah. Yeah.
Wow.
So sorry, I got off track, but the social media, that's it's with me, and I share something and I kind of know what to expect. I mean, today I posted that I reached 200 countries, and it's tremendously popular, and thousands of likes and many, many comments and shares. And that means that whatever I share tomorrow, it's going to be So it's just within the algorithm of things, so it's just going to be like, okay, no matter what I share. Like if I won the lottery, okay. And I know that there's a certain comfort in getting the comments and getting the high fives through social media, and the support and the connections and the ideas and all of this. Like it's like a companionship through it. And building on top of that thought, you said that it's interesting that you only just learned about this project now and it's crazy, it's been going for so long and you haven't heard about it. That's going to be the case for most people, because my social media has gradually been growing from when I hadn't accomplished anything up till when I had accomplished something, and up to where I am now in the project. It's getting more and more interesting, 3 countries left and so on and so forth. So the crazy thing is that I might have 100,000 followers if you combine everything, from Facebook and Instagram and Twitter and YouTube and whatnot. You put that together as 100,000. So that might triple or quadruple the day I reach the final country. There's a lot of media attention. This guy went to every country, he didn't fly. Then everyone will jump on that, which is a crazy time to get attached. Because the interesting thing would surely be
it's all
to
done.
Follow the story as it unfolds.
Yeah. Oh, you're frozen again.
The nature of, someone gets a gold medal in the Olympics, they get hundreds of thousands of followers, maybe, if it's a popular sport. And they go like, well, thank you. And then there's all, what's next? What's next? What are you going to do now? What's you going to do? They go, well, I just did it.
I've just done it.
I just did it.
Yeah, that is, God, yeah, that's an interesting thing that you just said there. Yeah, it's a whole 9 years behind you, and then everyone just joins right at the very end, don't they? And they've missed the journey, they've missed the experience of following along with it. Yeah. But
I hope I will be able to continue to generate these stories for years and years to come, and draw out of, what happened when I was in Bolivia and what happened when I was in Greenland and this, and share it with the new faces. So I hope to keep social media going somehow.
Yeah, you I'm sure you will. You absolutely will. It's timeless. That something like this is timeless, isn't it? And especially with things like Facebook, you get those memories that come back, don't they? They're like, oh, remember this from 5 years today or a year ago today. That thing crops up, doesn't it? And you're like, oh, right, okay.
Thank goodness, because I forgot half.
I know. Next one, Charlie Callard. Evening, gents. Morning, gents. Hope you're both well. Question for Thor. Why no flying? Well, we kind of covered that, didn't we? No one's ever done it before.
Yeah, it hasn't been done before. So there's a bit of controversy. Is that how you say? Controversy.
Yep. Controversy.
How you go? Yeah. Because there is a British guy from Liverpool who claims that he's done it. But when you dive deeper into what he did and what I'm trying to accomplish, it becomes very, very clear that it's two very different things. And I would be able to lay the claim that I am the first to reach every country in the world completely without flying. Because within his project there ended up being some flying, although he didn't fly when he was crossing the borders. But there was some flying involved. So that's the reason. This hasn't been done before, but the project is so much more than that today. It's about promoting the world in a positive sense and putting a spotlight on some of the good things and the kind people. I think that's really important, really, really important in this time that we're living through.
Yeah, today more than ever. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
And then certainly the humanitarian work, Red Cross, and then as we talked about earlier, with trying to inspire people to chase their goals and fight hard for what they want in life.
Me again, folks, just a short one this. We are also sponsored this month by the Influencer Store. If you go to TeapotOne.com, you'll go to the shop, check out any of the merchandise that I have available. That is all handled by the Influencer Store right here in the UK. I've got a quick bit of blurb to read out for them, and that is, the Influencer Store helps you build your brand, big or small, providing you with a solution and apparel. We help you to increase your fan base while supporting you with starting your own influencer clothing line with nothing more than just an idea or design, and there are no hidden costs. For more info, come check us out at theinfluencerstore.co.uk or drop us an email at online@influencerstore.co.uk for more information. Make sure you check them out, folks. Head to TeapotOne.com, head to the shop, and you'll be supporting both the TeapotOne channel and the podcast right here if you buy anything from the merchandise. So a massive thanks in advance to you, and a huge thanks to the Influencer Store. And lastly, folks, I just want to say a massive thank you to you, Thank you very much for listening to the podcast, for watching the vids, for commenting, for liking, for sharing, for following and subscribing. It all is a massive, massive help. We're on a bit of an upturn at the moment. The podcast is gathering momentum. The channel is certainly doing really well. So a huge thanks to everybody who's been involved with that. If you want to go that extra mile, then you can always buy some merch over at TeapotOne.com. Or if you really want to get committed, you can join the clan over at patreon.com/TeapotOne. All links for everything are down below, folks. I appreciate any support in any form you can give. All right, then. That's enough with the beg and bowl. Let's get back to the podcast. Yeah, my sort of tagline is live your life, and it was something that was said to me by my mum. Lost her fight with cancer before I left on my trip, and it was sort of her words that inspired me to. That's all right. It's life, isn't it? Sadly, so she said to me, look after those that you love, but live your life. And she knew I'd always had this dream of travel and dream of riding around the world, and she was just like, do it. Just do it. Promise me you'll do it. So my tagline is live your life. And that's something I try and promote through my videos, through this podcast, like getting people like you on with positive messages to hopefully inspire people and convey to people that don't believe the bullshit that you're fed through the media and the news, the TV and stuff. People are great. Yeah. Get out and see for yourself and meet people and experience the world. Because it can be quite a negative, intimidating place when you're just sat in front of the TV or social media and you're bombarded with all the crap that's happening out there, and people are doing this and people are doing that. The real world's not like that, is it? As you said, people are out there just getting on with life, wherever they are. For sure.
You would have a hard time explaining how I'm still alive. I'm traveling on $20 per day budget, which is
I couldn't believe that.
It covers transportation, accommodation, meals, and visas, which means I'm spending most of my time with local people in local transportation and sleeping in sometimes horrible places and whatnot, in slum areas and this and that. And it's 200 countries now on a small budget and a humble budget, at least, in very humble ways often. Mm. And I'm still alive. And you just wouldn't be able to explain that if you wanted to paint the world in the way that you often see it in the media, with everything being on fire. I should have been kidnapped times and times again, killed, murdered, eaten. I'm now in a country.
Oh, you froze.
Still cannibals. And,
what's that? There's still cannibal. There's still cannibalism there in Vanuatu.
No. 50 years ago, I think.
50 years, sorry. You froze right at the point when you were talking about it.
Oh, that's a great place.
Yeah, I know.
No, but 50 years ago, that's not that long. I mean, you have, my father is 74, right? So within his lifetime, they were eating people here.
Yeah, it's crazy, isn't it? That's crazy. Yeah. Charlie also, this follows on then from that. Charlie also asks, question for both: what's the strangest thing you've ever eaten? Please don't say somebody.
I don't know. It could have been bashed goat's brain.
Oh wow! Really?
Yeah, that wasn't great. And it could have been cow skin. I had this square. It looked like a piece of toast. So this square piece of skin, gelatinous, almost see-through. The light would certainly shine through, just in my soup.
Wow.
You had to grab it with your hands and then hold on to it and bite a piece out. And I was looking to the guy to my left and going what is in this? Do I get vitamins? Is it It's like nothing. It fills your stomach. It's like, okay, that's good. I've had insects. I've had horse. I've had cow. Cow, of course. I had horse. I had the camel. What I was going to say. I've had dog a couple of times. I've had steak and stuff. I've had a lot of interesting things that wouldn't end up on your plate back home.
Yeah, I don't think I just ate the food that was put in front of me when I was traveling. I didn't ask what was in it, because I think a lot of the time I didn't want to know. You know, it's just like, okay, I'm just going to eat, and that's that. I don't want to know that this is Fido. You know what I mean?
I think you're fine. I think you're fine most of the time. I think there are these few occasions where you don't want to know, but I think most of the time it's just ordinary. You're eating goats, or you're eating sheep, or you're eating. But I'd have to say, you know, for the most part, I didn't speak the language. I had no idea. It was just street food. It could have been anything. I traveled through. So during the Ebola epidemic in Western Africa, I traveled through Guinea, Liberia, and Sierra Leone. And again, life was pretty normal compared to the madness on media. But it did have me sort of hold my breath for a moment, go like, this is serious, you know, this virus, if you catch it, it's not going to end well.
Understatement of the year.
Yeah. And I got a ride by this couple, and I can't remember right now how I got in touch with them. They were a local couple, probably in Sierra Leone. And they gave me a ride, and they were in the front seat and driving in the passenger seat, and I was in the back. And we're in a rural area, and this guy comes out of the bush, and he's holding like this huge rat. That's the best way I can describe it. It's some sort of, I don't know, it's bushmeat. This is what they call it, bushmeat. So he probably hunted it, and now he wants to sell it to any car that comes by. Or he found it dead and picked it up and decided to sell. You don't know this. And at the time they were saying, well, Ebola spreads through bats, it spreads through rats, it spreads through rodents and this kind of stuff. But this guy is here selling it, and they want to buy it. They go like, this is a bargain. Let's buy this nice, delicious bushmeat from the guy on the side of the road.
Oh, wow.
I'm looking at it going like, we're not bringing that into the vehicle, are we? I mean, like, seriously, that this could be Ebola. You know what? They're like, it looks fine. It's probably not Ebola. And
it looks fine.
But I mean, like, so I don't know what that animal was, but I could very possibly have eaten it somewhere or something similar, you know, because you don't know.
And beggars can't be choosers. You know that saying. When you need to eat, you need to eat. So you eat what is there. Next one, Ben Farmer. Hello, both. Thor, I think we've covered this. How did this epic trip get started, and what was your inspiration? Yeah, we covered that at the start, didn't we?
Yeah.
Secondly, with only a handful of countries to go, what will we do when you finish? Well, we've covered that as well.
Yeah.
Cheers, though, Ben. Thank you for your question, pal. Next one, Overlander, no coriander. Probably none of the three countries you still have to visit is next to the country you call home nowadays. Will you be flying back after your last country? We covered that one as well. Sorry, I try not to pre-read the questions beforehand, just so
it's fine.
There is much of a surprise to me.
It's a pretty good recap as we go. You know?
Well, yeah, for sure. Louise Worsfold, hi both. What's the weirdest creature that you've encountered on your travels, and which one would you have liked to have been able to bring home as a pet? That's a good question.
I don't know how weird it is. But there were two chimpanzees, and so when I was in Equatorial Guinea, which is right in the heart of Central Africa, and it's such a long story in regards to how I got there and so on. But where I want to get to is that they have a capital, and they decided they were building a new capital. And the capital that they have was this colonial capital left by the Spanish, where the plumbing and electricity and all of this wasn't too great. And it's like the population has completely outgrown what the Spaniards they built it for back then and so on. So, and they have money. They have so much oil, and they've partnered up with the US, and they export a lot of oil to the US. So they decided, we're just going to do Sim City. We're just going to clear a part of the jungle and build, like, here's a hospital, here's a university, this is a retirement home, this is a museum, and so on. And I was there, like, let's say they've done 65% of it, but I was there, and it was like a ghost town. It was just like, the French are going to build this, the Israelis are going to build this, and these guys, the Americans, and so on, like different contractors on site. And that's where I stayed. And the guy that set me up, he was responsible for building this luxury hotel and golf court and golf resort. And obviously they drove me out to see that, which is surreal. I mean, it's Central Africa. And this is Dubai, you know, it's surreal. And you have all these people neatly taking care of the grass for the golf course and this and that. Yeah. I was looking at it and going like, that's an ape, isn't it? I'm like, yeah, they sometimes come out of the forest. And there were these two small chimpanzees, and they were not shy at all. So there was a possibility that they were taken when they were very young, and they've been living with humans. And then when they grew too big, the humans let them go like this, or something like this. But they were certainly accustomed to humans, and they were not shy. And they came and they were playing with me. They're strong. They're really strong. Yeah. And at some point the play got too violent and I got scared. Like they're super strong and they have big teeth. That's why it's quite aggressive.
Yeah, absolutely. There are. I listen to Joe Rogan. Do you ever listen to the Joe Rogan podcast?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
And he has this thing, doesn't he, about apes, where he watches videos of people when people are playing with chimpanzees, like wild chimpanzees, and people that keep them as pets, and then it goes horribly wrong because, like, the chimpanzees, especially when they attack a male, they basically rip the genitalia off, don't they? They go straight for the cock and balls, and then like they bite the fingers off. And he said there's a video. Obviously, I've never watched it, but there's a video where this monkey literally just descalps somebody, just bites their head and rips descalps them. And he said they do it.
I'm happy I got out of there.
Yeah, I know. But he said like you can't fathom the strength that primates have compared to their body size.
So
they're just like
so strong.
Like 10 times as strong as a human. They'll just rip it, no problem at all.
Yeah. Yeah. So I have this traveler's hat, and it's like this old-fashioned hat, and it wanted my hat, and I was trying to reach back. At one point, it went like this, and its nail scratched just below my eye, and I got like this.
Wow.
This scratch, and then eventually they're cunning. So there were two of them, and eventually they got the hat from me. And I was sort of holding the hat, turning it, and then inside there was this filth that was put inside the part that actually touches your head, and it just when it.
Oh, you froze again.
It's my very expensive hat you're playing with there.
Well, it just you froze just as you said. What, it ripped the felt out.
Yeah, and it just ripped the filth out like that, and then it was bored with the hat and just kind of.
Yeah, you can have it back now. Yeah.
Yeah, but it had some bite marks from the chimpanzees as well. It was pretty cool. I lost that hat in Congo,
no,
unfortunately. Yeah.
I was going to say, have you still got the hat? What a memento.
Yeah, unfortunately.
Cool. Thank you for that one, Louise. Cheers. Next one, Colonel Bullen. Hi, Bruce and Thor. What an incredible journey. My question is, what was the trickiest situation you found yourself in where you thought, if I don't play my cards right here, it could end badly? Right. So the most dangerous situation you found yourself in. Is there any that spring to mind?
You're frozen right now. I don't know if I'm going through.
I can hear you. Yep, I can hear you.
Okay, good. So that would definitely have been in Central Africa as well. I was at a border near Congo. I was in Cameroon, and it was in the middle of the night. It was the 1st of January, so people have been partying really hard throughout the night with the New Year and all. And a lot of people were drunk and a lot of people were happy and so on. But in this particular situation, I was with a taxi driver. We've been going down a dirt road for hours and hours and hours without seeing anyone. We're in a jungle or forest or what we want to call it. And suddenly our headlights, through all the dust as well, the headlights, they reveal 3 shadows that are blocking the road. And we slow down for that. And they are uniformed, and they are armed to their teeth, and they're drunk out of their mind. And they command us out of the vehicle. And from the moment I stepped out, I happened to have the wrong skin color.
Yeah.
And one guy got really vicious, like cartoon vicious. You could almost see the red in his eyes. Mm-hmm. And he just had it in for me. And, some people do have it in for, all of those countries were colonized. And and a lot of countries came, and even today, a lot of countries are just stealing. They're just extracting minerals and timber and whatnot. And I'm not going to say that it's everybody's fault that the countries are at the state that they're in today. But I understand if some people hold a grudge against totally. European countries. And I might not, I was born in 1978. I was born after a lot of stuff happened, but I represent something that some people hate.
Yeah, yeah.
And he was drunk and he was armed and it was in the moment. And I had no doubt that was the end of my life. I had absolutely no doubt. It was one of those moments where it's crystal clear that you've made a grave mistake and this is the end of the line. And it was just a question of how many seconds do I have left?
Wow.
And those seconds turned into minutes. But constantly I was thinking, I'm going to hear the sound of this machine gun and then I'm going to fall down on top of myself bloody. And I don't know, this is the end of it. They had their fingers on the triggers.
Yeah.
And it was really aggressive. I was really aggressive for a long time. So I would have to say that moment. I had to handle myself well in that moment. And I don't know how much of it was my own doing. I didn't get aggressive at any point in that situation. I was very docile and I tried to be very complacent. And I just ran it out. But eventually they let us go, the taxi driver and me, and I don't know why. I don't know what changed, that they suddenly let us go. Maybe they got tired with it. Maybe they wanted to drink something else, but they let us go.
Did that have any effect on you in that I had a similar experience at the Rosso border? I got taken by a gang and hell for a while, and they did. I remember them playing Russian roulette with an AK, like racking the gun, putting it in my head, pulling the trigger, all this sort of stuff, and laughing about it. And literally, like 1 minute they'll do that, and the next minute they'll come up and give me like a cold can of Coke. It's like good guy, bad guy, and it was all to try and get money out of me because they know as a traveller you have money, and when they're asking for money and you say no, right? Well, they know that you've got it somewhere, and I remember. After all that, again, I think they just were satisfied that they'd got all the money that they needed and they just let me go, and that was that. But I remember after that, I had this feeling of, okay, that's as worse as it's going to get then, so let's crack on. Nothing's going to stop me now. I almost felt invincible after it. Did you have that feeling?
I'm sorry, the connection is terrible. Oh, right. You're frozen and all your speech is hacked.
Oh, can you hear me now? Can you see me now?
I don't know if I'm going through, but you're frozen and I'm not hearing a single thing. I haven't heard anything for a minute now.
Right. Okay then, folks. We're gonna stop this now, and I'll try and get a part 2 in the future. Hope you've enjoyed this one. Keep doing your thing. Keep looking after those that you love. Get on out there whenever you can. But most importantly, live your life. Woo-ha!